Welcome to the Employco HR podcast. I'm Rob Wilson. With me is my brother and partner, Scott.
Hello. Jason
Eisler, our vice president of HR.
Hi, everyone.
And, of course, Nikki Navarro working the board in the new year. So happy New Year, everybody.
Happy New Year.
2023.
Hope you all had a good set of holidays.
Yeah, 22 flew by.
It did.
So we thought we'd take a look back at 22 and it's kind of the bigger HR issues, as well as then talk a little bit about 23. But and also a big thank you to Scott Robinson for being on our show
what
last
a great
month.
Guest. If you're first tuning into our podcast now, listen to the last one. Scott's awesome.
And Google Robinson Resource Group. It's a great way to improve, especially if you're a leader in a company and an executive. It's a great way to improve your skills and abilities.
Yeah, Scott's a good friend and great guest.
So. Yeah, great guest.
So, Jason, 2022. So it was interesting as you look back, it seems like a lifetime ago. But 22 started the first big really controversy was the COVID-19 vaccine.
Vaccine mandates.
Right. It was mandated. OSHA was going to require it to employees, any company that had employees over 100.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's almost exactly a year ago that the Supreme Court came down and overruled the OSHA ruling or prohibited, where OSHA was going to say if you're a company with 100 employees or more, you have to have all of your employees vaccinated or go through weekly testing. And obviously there was accommodations for religious and disabilities, but yeah, the Supreme Court almost a year ago said that's prohibited, and now up to each employer whether or not they want to mandate vaccines and things like that, especially in the healthcare setting.
Right, so you still see a fair amount in healthcare. So OSHA, interesting enough, OSHA was overruled by the Supreme Court, which was a relief to a lot of businesses because they were all scrambling to figure out
costs for testing.
Well, figuring out, all right, if how are we going to manage it?
Yeah.
The cost for testing, back and forth. So it was a good move by the Supreme Court. But at the same time, it didn't apply to federal employees. So, for example, the military.
Right.
How many thousands of military personnel and soldiers were laid off or discharged because they weren't vaccinated?
Right.
Fast forward to the end of 22 as the defense budget that was put forth. They were eliminating the vaccine mandate for the military.
Right.
So you still have to be vaccinated if you're not a U.S. citizen coming in on any plane across the country. Travel-wise, any visitor, you can't come in the U.S. We're one of the only countries left in the world that you have to be vaccinated, unless, of course, you come across the border and our southern border. So but it's so interesting from a mandate standpoint that they kept it in place for the military but didn't apply to Congress, White House, et cetera. There's a lot of government. The post office actually said we're not delivering the mail if we have to. So another big thing that kind of everyone expected to be a big thing, but it never materialized, was everyone was expecting a new overtime wage limits.
Right.
Yeah, so currently it's around $35,000. As probably everyone remembers, a few years ago was during the Obama administration. Just at the end of it, it was proposed and going to be a final rule to move it to $47,000. By the start of the Trump administration, that got overturned. So where we are today is at $35,000. So anyone earning less than $35,000 is automatically going to be non-exempt and be eligible for overtime. So those people who only over that you have to look at their skills and abilities and how much independent discretion do they have. Yeah, we all thought it was going to be this year, the proposed rule, but it's not there yet. So
in 22. So we think it's going to be in 23, and sometime this year we think they'll propose they'll want to get something through during this administration.
Right.
But I would have thought it would have been last year in 22. And who knows?
When they had the House, too.
Right. So who knows what you're going to see that go to? Any predictions, Jason?
If I had to rub the crystal ball, I think it's going to be somewhere around 47,000, where we thought the end of the Obama administration was going to be. So it's somewhere around 47,000.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. And where you're seeing the biggest effect on that, a great example is restaurants.
Yeah.
The restaurant manager that was working 60 hours, they make him a manager and they paid him X, and now he works overtime for free. So this that'll raise this, you think, to 47.
Yeah, somewhere around. That's just my guess.
You heard it here first.
Here first.
And Nikki's recording this, so we will, when it does happen, we'll see how close.
Jason's prediction. There we go.
So at some point, I got to think it's going to be this year.
Happen.
Another thing from a couple other big things from last year was as the recession kind of started heating up, inflation, interest rates going up, you started to see a lot of large company layoffs.
Yeah, especially in the tech industry. The Twitters of the world and some other big name tech companies, big layoffs. And just as a kind of a reminder, if you have over 100 employees and you're going to do at least 50% of a layoff, that's called the WARN Act, where you have to give your employees at least a 60-day written notice that there's going to be a layoff. So that's for larger companies over 100 employees.
Yeah, and I think you'll see more of that in this year in 23. But last year that was a big topic was layoffs, and also quiet quitting was a big issue.
Right.
The phrase for 2022, quiet quitting.
Quiet quitting, and I think it's still going to be difficult for employers to find good people to fill positions. I mean, we're in Illinois and Chicagoland, where everyone you talk to, they're having a tough time finding people.
Yeah, I was just talking to a friend and a listener of the podcast, and she had mentioned the same of, when is this going to end? When can I get good quality people? Regardless of what I'm paying, I just need people that can show up.
Right.
And I was at a restaurant last night, and they have the same problem.
I mean, it's such a reoccurring theme, regardless of industry, type of business. Everybody has that problem.
Yeah, just in the last 3 days, we've had conversations with clients in the custodial industry and in the kind of the environmental testing industry. Both are just hurting for employees. It's just no one can find any. But it's either why aren't people looking, or people are jumping ship for higher paying wages.
And I know a lot of people left Illinois, but it's still.
Yeah, I would think that it's going to continue this year. But hopefully, the goal, everyone thought, all right, the interest rates are going up, recession's kind of looming. Hard to say what's going to happen this year with a recession. Is it going to be mild, or what's going to happen as interest rates continue to go up? But where are all the people?
Yeah.
So hopefully
not here, right? In Illinois, that is. I mean, we've got great staff here, but it's still. I mean, I think at any given point in time, we always have 4 to 5 openings.
Right. So that was a big issue, and then of course from a political standpoint, Supreme Court on Roe versus Wade. That was
and I think that had a big impact, definitely on the Senate side.
Right.
I think had that not been ruled on, I think it was a pretty sure thing that the Democrats would have lost both the House and the Senate. But I know in Illinois, every campaign commercial, and it seems like it was a while ago, but it was all about abortion.
Yeah, and luckily, I know we didn't hear from too many. I think one client came to our HR department for help with like an employee disagreement and heated arguments, kind of for and against abortion. But it wasn't too prevalent. I didn't hear from a lot of our clients that became an issue in their workplace.
Right. No, it became really a political issue.
Right.
The Democrats ran on Republicans. Republicans are on the abortion issue, and it outshadowed how bad the economy and the crime was. When you look at how bad the crime is in Chicago, the countless days of carjackings, and last month in December, you see the video of a woman walking her dog in Lincoln Park, and a guy jumps out of a car with a gun and steals her purse and then her car as well.
Yeah,
just out walking your dog in the middle of the day.
Yeah,
but all that kind of gets buried in the sand. But so as we look at 23, Jason, as we look fast forward past the month of January, so you think you're still going to probably see more layoffs?
Yeah, I mean, it depends on the industry. I think the tech industry might see some continued. It depends on the industry, but I think we'll see some layoffs depending on how bad a recession gets, if there will be one. But I think some employers in certain industries will still be hurting for employees and still
hospital industry and things like that.
Right.
Yeah, I think you're going to see interest rates still continue to rise.
Definitely.
They've slowed down a little bit. It was you had three times they raised it 3/4 of a point. The most recent one was 1/2 point, but I think you're still going to see more of that going on.
Yeah, and then the last increase, he had mentioned that it won't probably be as big, but it definitely will keep going up.
And I think that will also drive wage increase, and as inflation keeps going up fairly significantly, I think wages will too, unless you're in one of these industries that has layoffs, and then you might be able to, as an employer, not have to pay as much.
Yeah.
Where does the minimum wages go across the country?
Yeah, I mean, just it depends. So a lot of states have it programmed where it's January 1st, 2023, January 1st, 2024. But there are several states that'll be up in the air, and obviously how their governor races are going to be panning out will affect their minimum wage and whether or not they're tied to the federal or start on their own to go independent.
Do you think you're going to see anything under the Biden administration over the next couple of years before the general election on federal minimum wage?
I don't know.
He's got a crystal ball.
Yeah. Well, with it split so close, I think it's a good win for both parties. If it's not significant increase, but I just with so much contention right now in government, maybe it just doesn't happen.
Yeah, I see with the Republicans having the House, I don't see a lot of things going through.
Yeah. And that, on the federal side, that, I could see that as a bipartisan issue, though, raising them. Because so many other states, look at within our payroll system and our HR team. So, you've got federal, you've got state, you've got county, you've got city. It's a fair amount of wages that you're keeping track of on the minimum wage side. But I would think, hard to say, but they're going to address it at some point, I would think.
Right.
Jason, overtime rule?
It's happening this year. I think I think by summer we'll have a proposed overtime rule, and then it'll allow time for comments and industry groups to kind of fight against it one way or the other. But I think by the end of this year, by the end of 2023, we'll have a kind of a final rule ready to go. It'll be decided.
What about getting people back in the office? So we've been back in the office for a long time, and then we were back 5 days a week, and then we brought in a little bit of a hybrid. So we've got some team members that the most you could be from home is 2 days a week. But, you look at some of the big companies, the large banks downtown in Chicago, and as you go in their buildings, it's empty.
Right.
They're struggling to get people back 2 days a week.
I think you'll continue to see people go back more and more as things. I mean, I think it's just the natural, as we're starting to get used to living with COVID. I mean, that's really, at the end of the day, that's what started it all. It forced the issue. But I think you'll see more and more people have to come back.
Yeah, unfortunately for those restaurants, especially in the Loop, I don't think it's going to be 100% before COVID, but it'll get more and people back in the office. I don't think we'll be back to where we were pre-COVID.
And where you're seeing that is on the large employer side. The small employer side, you're seeing people back.
Right.
So, but yeah, you're right. When you look at retail and restaurants in the Loop and other areas, they rely on that lunch business that's just not there.
And it has the impact on all the muggers too in the city. I mean,
you can still get carjacked at lunchtime.
Yeah, exactly.
This speaking from experience.
Yeah, right.
Their business is down.
Everyone knows. Yeah.
Attempted carjacking.
Attempted. Yeah. Wow.
But I think it's going to continue to be an issue, and something on the HR side is for those remote employees still working on your culture and working on your engagement, your employee engagement, which is so important part of your culture. So those remote employees, you still have to work on the culture and how to engage those remotely. But also on the flip side, we've got so many clients that they're hiring remote people all over the country.
Yeah.
You no longer have.
A week doesn't go by where we at least have like 3 clients with
new states.
New states. Yeah.
I mean, it's easier. It helps on recruiting, but it's more difficult on the culture and retention side.
Right.
Yeah, but 8871?
8871.
Workers' comp.
That's the workers' comp code.
Yeah, it's now ingrained. Before it's always 8810 for clerical, 8745 for sales, but now it's 8871.
Do you see a lot of updating this year on company handbooks?
Yes, I think we'll wait for January because some of these model posters are coming out in January. So I think that'll be a good time to update company handbooks, especially if you're in states that have law changes that it could affect your business.
A shout out to a place we advertise, Kerry Miller at Food Industry News. We were just talking handbooks, and he said, because they don't really have, they've got a couple employees, but we advertise in every other month. And he said, could we trade a free ad for a handbook? So Jason would love to create a handbook.
Yes. So I think they're really worth it. Until you kind of realize after the fact, after an employee complaint comes up, or if an unemployment claim comes up, it's almost too late at that point. But I think it's a good idea for almost any size organization.
It's your safety net.
Yeah.
And so, something that we've had a lot of success with is the employee surveys that Jason does.
Those are gold.
that's if you don't do one within your company, I would strongly suggest it, and feel free to reach out to Jason. Jason's created the surveys of where you're using a third of your questions are coming from our surveys, and we're surveying 800 clients during the course of the year who's ever using it. So you've got some good data. Then you're using some SHRM questions, and then another chunk of questions are for that specific company. And of course, the open-ended essay questions are always good. But then you're then creating focus group to look at what did you do well, what did you do bad, and how can you improve all of it.
Yeah, I mean, it's a nice way to get a pulse of your company. I think nowadays it might even be good to do it twice a year, but at minimum do it once a year because times are changing pretty quickly now. Yeah. But it's a good way to get anonymous feedback for your employees where they can feel like they're provide open and honest feedback and how they think the benefits are in the company. Does their management team do a good job communicating? Do I feel like I work in a safe and inclusive environment? Wide range of topics that your employees can give you feedback on as a leadership team to know what you can focus on.
And the key is anonymous, because I think that's when you get the true.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's been a great tool within our organization. We use it every year, and we get a lot out of it and make a lot of changes every year. And it's based on your coworkers, your team's feedback.
Yeah. I shower every day of the week now before, so it's been the body odor. Oh yeah, it's gone. It's great.
Good to know.
Yeah.
Anything else, Jason, before we wrap up our first podcast of the new year?
Yeah, if there's anything that you could use help on related to human resources, feel free to contact us, hr@employco.com. We're here to help.
2023 brings you the Nikki Navarro wedding.
Yeah.
Biggest event of the year.
It is.
He's hiring security personnel and paparazzi. And
going to the tastings and picking out tuxedos. So we're going to have Nikki on as a guest as we get closer. So
sure.
Wedding planning, the do's and don'ts.
Right. Exactly. So save that date. So we might not have a podcast that month because there'll be no one to work board.
Yeah.
So, but thanks for joining us for our first podcast of the year. And any questions or comments, feel free to reach out to us. A couple of things from today came from people that reached out with some issues and questions. So feel free, hr@employco.com. It goes right to Jason's email.
Thank you so much. Make this year a great one.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us. Happy New Year.